Hey y'all, welcome back for another hunting ammo ballistics gel test. Today I've got an ultimate heavyweight in 708 for you. Norma Tipstrike, their 160 grain load in 7mm-08. That's a heavyweight for this cartridge. And here is your very cool looking box for that Norma Tipstrike, whoops, the other way, 160 grain load in the 7mm-08, very heavy bullet for 7mm-08. Great looking box. We got a cool picture of a deer and a wild boar on here, sort of your intended game, your general medium game. Let's go ahead and flip it around to the back. And Norma puts some great promo info on a lot of their boxes, so feel free to stop, pause, and read all that if you would like. You can kind of see right here what they're intending the ammo to do. And then right down here, we've got sort of an expansion chart, kind of what to expect at 50, 100, and 150 yards. Of course, we will be shooting it at 100 yards, well, meters. That's a little bit further than 100 yards, but whatever. So that's a kind of about what we're going to be looking for and what we're going to be judging this stuff against when we pull it out of the gel. Let's go ahead and flip it right here. We've got their ballistics table. Velocity at the muzzle is stated at 2,690 feet per second. So let's go ahead and pull the stuff out and take a look. And as I always mention, Norma ammo comes in these pretty cool black plastic ammo holders. You can snap them in half, just like that. Slip 5 rounds in your pack or your pocket, nice and handy. Also, you can use this black plastic piece as an emergency fire fuel source. You light it and it'll burn for a long time. Of course, take the ammo out before you do that. Push down right here and then push up and they pop right out. Super handy. And there's your heavyweight 160 grain Tipstrike in 708. Let's go shoot it and see how it does. And my test rifle today is my Ruger American Gen 2, chambered in 7mm-08, of course. It's got a 20-inch barrel, and we are taking advantage of that threaded muzzle. Up top, we've got a Vortex Diamondback scope, and I've got it in my own custom-painted Gen 1 stock. And coming on back, I've got to show you one of my handmade leather cartridge cuffs. Check out my website, masonleather.com, to get yourself one. I would love to make you one. And I've also got one of my super thick Latigo leather slings here, also available on my website, masonleather.com. If you're looking for a leather sling that'll last a lifetime, you're going to want to check these out. And coming around to the other side, I've got to show you my white-tailed deer design.
We'll be taking 3 shots from 100 yards, firing into 10% ballistics gel that has been calibrated to meet the FBI's ballistics testing protocol. And while ballistics gel isn't an exact proxy for big game, it does provide a repeatable medium through which to test various bullets and ammo against each other. After the shots, we'll examine bullet expansion, weight retention, penetration, and velocity. My goal is to provide hunters like you and I with the most objective information possible to help us make the best choice for our particular hunting situation. The ballistics gel in this video has been sourced from Clear Ballistics. You can find a link in the description.
So let's go ahead and shoot it. And here are your velocities for that Norma Tipstrike 160 grain load, minimum 2562, maximum 2614 for an average of 2590. And a quick announcement, if you'd like early access to my videos weeks and even months in advance of everyone else, become a channel member. The links will be in the video description and the pinned comment. Thanks, y'all. And we are down at the blocks after shooting that 160 grain Norma Tipstrike out of the 7mm-08, and we did capture all 3 bullets. This second block is a little bit dark. We have one right there down in the middle of the block. Let's talk about penetration, about 24.5 inches. This one right here will give 26.5 inches, and it's probably hard to see. The third bullet is, I'll see if I can focus, you can kind of see the shadow of it right there, but it's over like centered in the bottom of the block, right there at about, we're going to give that one 30 inches of penetration. We can't see it from the top, but really nice deep penetration from this Tipstrike ammo, which is what it says on the back of the box. It says it'll give you a hit up front and then penetrate deep, and that's exactly what it did. Coming on over to the first block, we have some really nice looking wound cavities, and you can see the orange tips from the bullets right there. And these open up very rapidly, almost immediately. We have a nice wound track, and then they start to taper off right here at about the 9-inch mark. A little shallower than some stuff, but about par for the course for most of your medium game hunting ammo. And then they just penetrate on back. And here's a side view of those wound tracks. just for your reference. So let's go ahead and dig these guys out and take a look. And real quick, if you're watching this video anytime around when it came out, I'm having a huge sale on my website, masonleather.com. Go check it out and get yourself something. All right, we got those bullets pulled out of the blocks. Let's go ahead and take a look at them. The heavyweight 160 grain Norma Tipstrikes out of the 7mm-08. Weight retention, 120, 125, 128 grains for an average of 124 grains retained weight. Pretty consistent across all three bullets. That's 78% weight retention. And for something called Tipstrike that's, supposed to at least partially fragment and create a nasty wound channel up front, that's actually pretty high weight retention. If you look on the back of the box here, one of the sort of bullet points, it says thin front jacket for devastating shock effect. So some portion of the bullet is intended to break up, and that's what we saw here. I'm a little surprised it wasn't more, but again, this is a heavy bullet for 7mm-08. Very pleased with that. Expansion wise, 0.61, 0.62, and 0.85 inches expanded diameter for an average of 0.69 inch. Overall, it works out to 2.4x expansion. Very pleased with it. And something else on the back of the box here, once again, it has a little chart actually showing representations of bullets having impacted at different distances. And if we look at the photo of the 100 meter, 100 yard impact bullet, it does look very similar to what we actually saw with the real test. So that's great to see. Realistic advertising and marketing. Doesn't always happen in the ammo world. On to velocity, our high was 2614, our low was 2563 for an average of 2590 versus the factory build velocity of 2,690 feet per second. So we came in 100 feet per second under the factory build velocity in the real test here. Keep in mind, we're shooting these out of a 20-inch barrel, so we are going to be hindering the velocity with that. It's what I have. No one sponsors this. No, rifle manufacturers are sending me rifles. It's all out of my own pocket, so we're going to use what I got. And when comparing to the other 18 loads of 7mm-08 that I've tested, 19 in total, I believe, not all the videos are out yet, this ammo performed very favorably in terms of where the velocity fell. Most of them were anywhere between 100 and 150 feet per second under their factory rated spec. This is at the better end of that. So very pleased with velocity. If you're shooting these out of a 22 and especially a 24-inch barrel, I could see you chewing up the majority, if not all of that 100 feet per second. And our estimated impact velocity down there at 100 yards would be about 2,383 feet per second. On to penetration. Great penetration out of these bullets. 24.5 inches, 26.5 inches, and 30 inches for an average of 27 inches of penetration. This is on the deeper end of your lead and copper cup and core bullets out of 7mm-08. Past the 2 foot mark, if you're hunting a little bit bigger medium game with your 7/08, this might be a good option for you and get a little bit deeper penetration, while still creating a nice nasty wound cavity up front. Best of both worlds. And kinetic energy wise, with a 160 grain bullet going on average 2,590 feet per second, we're looking at 2,383 foot-pounds at the muzzle and 2,017 foot-pounds down there at 100 yards. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is definitely one of the more powerful 7mm-08 loads that I've tested. Make of that what you will. All right, y'all, time for my final thoughts on this Norma Tipstrike 160 grain heavyweight load out of the 7/08. Across the board, it did really well. We did have a little bit of fragmentation because we lost 22% of the bullet mass, but it still maintained most of its weight, and it showed in that penetration, beyond 2 feet of penetration. It's not often you get sort of a combo of, nasty wound up front and deep penetration. This bullet delivered that. Expansion was great as well. The velocity was also on the better end of what I've seen across all the 7/08 loads that I've tested out of my 20-inch barreled rifle. Again, if you got a longer barrel, you're going to see more velocity. Overall, I think this ammo performed really, really, really well, especially as compared to, on the back of the box, its performance specs that Norma states. We did get some, shock up front, some partial fragmentation, but the bulk of the bullet maintained together and penetrated on through. It looks just like the bullet on the box there. Here, let me see if I can get the camera to focus. Right there in the middle, That middle bullet is a 100-meter impact representation, and that's about exactly what they looked like. So it's always good to see true marketing in terms of hunting ammo. Not always the case. I think this stuff did great. What I would like to see though, I would really like to see Norma come out with a 139 or 140 grain version of this in 7mm-08, a little bit lighter bullet, going a bit faster. Even a 120 grain version would be really interesting. Take one of these Tipstrike bullets, 120 grains, going 3,000 feet per second out of your 7/08 for a real flat shooting, 0 to 300 yard deer rifle. Man, I don't know if it would get much better than that. I'd like to see that. Norma, if you're watching, if you're listening, consider putting a load like that out. And I'd definitely test it here on the channel. But as it stands, it is one of the heavyweight loads on the market. There's not a lot of 160 grain 7/08 loads out there. I think this is the only one I was able to find when I was acquiring all my 7mm-08 ammo for testing. I'd like to see some more in that weight range, especially considering how well this one performed. So what would I use this stuff for? Well, it did great. It kind of did everything. Expansion, weight retention, great penetration. I wouldn't hesitate to use this stuff on even a little bit larger bodied medium game, your bigger whitetail deer, your mule deer, even black bear. It's got the penetration to get into what you need it to. And I'm sure it would still do absolutely excellent on your typical size deer. All in all, it's a really interesting load. And again, I'd love to see like a 120 grain version of this stuff come out. If you've used this ammo on game, let me and everyone else know in the comments how it did for you. And check out my website, masonleather.com, and get yourself some leather gear handmade by me just for you. I've been handcrafting leather gear for hunters for over a decade, and I would love to make you something. And there are hundreds of reviews on my website, so you can see what real hunters have to say about their Mason leather gear. And also tons of photos showing all the customizable options, including name, initial, and caliber stamping, as well as wild game designs and more. Everything is handmade by me right here in the USA. I would love to be a part of your hunt through my leather gear. And it helps support this channel, so I can bring you more hunting ammo ballistics gel tests, and lots of other cool stuff in the future. The link will be in the video description and the pinned comment, or you can just type masonleather.com into your web browser.
And click one of these cards for more hunting ammo ballistics gel tests.